If you are just joining me, 1 Super Bowl, 4 MVPs. That gap is the whole reason this video even exists. In part 1, we covered 2009 through 2014, the Super Bowl run, the 15-1 season, and the most painful collapse in Packers history. If you haven't watched it yet, go check that out first, so all of this makes sense. Link in the description below. I have to be honest with you here. This is one of the losses I remember most, and it's still one of the most emotional roller coasters I've ever experienced as a Packers fan. The 2015 season was one of the most heroic of Rodgers' entire career, and it almost never gets talked about in that way. Jordy Nelson tore his ACL in the preseason and was gone for the year. By the time the playoffs rolled around, Rodgers was also without Devontae Adams and Ty Montgomery, all unavailable in the same game. Think about that for a second. His top 3 weapons, all out in a playoff game. The Packers had gone past Washington in the wildcard round, beating them 35-18, setting up a rematch with Arizona Cardinals in the divisional round. What followed is considered one of the most iconic playoff games in NFL history. Trailing 20-13 with under a minute left with no timeouts, facing 4th and 20 from his own 4-yard line, Rodgers spun out of pressure in his own end zone and threw a 60-yard bomb to a little-known wide receiver in the 7th round named Jeff Janis. The Packers still had 41 yards to go with 5 seconds left. Rodgers rolled left under pressure and launched a Hail Mary that Jeff Janis somehow ran down and caught it for the game-tying touchdown as time expired. I remember watching those 2 throws back-to-back and just losing my mind. As a kid, it genuinely felt like I was watching something that wasn't supposed to be possible. 2 Hail Marys in the same game, back-to-back plays, just to survive. It felt like Rodgers was bending the rules of sport in real time. And then we lost the coin toss, and somehow I still had hope. After what I just watched, how could I not? Arizona received the ball to start overtime. On the very first play, Carson Palmer spun away from a sack and found Larry Fitzgerald wide open across the field. I remember watching him run and just feeling my stomach drop with every yard he gained. 75 yards later, he was at our doorstep. And 2 plays later, it was over. I was devastated, genuinely devastated, in a way that's hard to explain to people who don't follow sports closely. You go from the feeling like you just watched the greatest comeback of your life, to feeling like the rug got pulled from underneath you in a span of about 30 seconds. Rodgers never touched the ball again. He didn't even get a chance to do something special for the 3rd time in a row. You cannot watch that game and blame Rodgers. You might say, well, actually, that his stats aren't really that impressive, which I would agree with. But he did just complete 2 of the most improbable plays in NFL playoff history. He did it without his top 3 weapons. He did it behind the offensive line that already allowed a sack on the previous play. With the season on the line, he did everything humanly possible to keep the Packers alive. And the moment his offense left the field, the game was decided by a single defensive mishap. It reminds me of another game we'll be talking about later on this list. People always talk about 2014 as the most embarrassing loss in Packers history. And they're right, it probably is. But this one taught me what it actually feels like to be a Packers fan. The highest of highs and the lowest of lows. The 2016 season should have never ended in an NFC Championship game. The Packers started 4-6 and looked completely finished. But then, during a press conference, he said this.
I feel like we can run the table. I really do. I think the offense is starting to click a little bit more. We just got to put together a game where we're consistent from the first snap to the last.
Then Aaron Rodgers won arguably the greatest stretch of quarterback play anyone has ever seen, leading Green Bay on a 6-game win streak to close the regular season out and finish 10-6. Another iconic moment of Rodgers' career. The playoff run itself had been as good as anything Rodgers had ever done. He dismantled the Giants in the wildcard round, then beat the top-seeded Cowboys in the divisional round on a legendary Jared Cook sideline catch that set up the game-winning field goal. I actually made a whole separate video about this, so if you want to check that out, link in the description below. Rodgers was playing at an otherworldly level heading into Atlanta, which made what happened next even harder to watch. Just like how hard it is for you guys to hit the subscribe button. The Falcons scored on their opening drive and never looked back. By halftime, it was 24-0, Matt Ryan completing nearly 3/4 of his passes and finding Julio Jones over and over again, including a 73-yard touchdown bomb in the third quarter that pushed the lead to 31. Ryan finished that day with 392 yards and 4 touchdown passes, the second most passing yards ever thrown in a conference championship game, adding a rushing touchdown for his own good measure. Green Bay did have a chance to make it competitive early. In the second quarter, with the Packers driving and threatening to get on the board, fullback Aaron Rodgers busted through for what looked like a promising gain near the goal line, only to get stripped by Atlanta's defender Jalen Collins, who recovered in the end zone for a touchback. Rodgers did manage to throw 2 touchdowns in the second half once the game was already out of reach, finishing with 21 points on the board, but by then it didn't matter. The game was final, 44-21. If you are looking for who to blame in this one, look at the defense first. They simply couldn't get off the field, allowing Atlanta to convert third down after third down. Dom Capers, the same defensive coordinator who already presided over multiple playoff collapses by this point in the decade, had no answer for what Kyle Shanahan and the Atlanta Falcons offense were doing. Look at the running game too, which had been a non-factor for most of the season, and gave Rodgers nothing to lean on when the passing game needed a breather. Rodgers himself actually played a decent game given the circumstances. He didn't have enough help climbing out of a 24-point hole against historically a great offense. Well, after a rough 2-year stretch, the Packers decided it was finally time to change things up. They cleaned house, they fired Mike McCarthy and Don Capers. Then the Packers turned to a 39-year-old first-time head coach named Matt LaFleur. Nobody knew exactly what to expect. Well, what they got was a complete turnaround. Green Bay went from a 6-9-1 season the year before to a 13-3 one, sweeping the entire NFC North for the first time since that legendary 2011 season. And Rodgers wasn't asked to do everything himself anymore. With Aaron Jones emerging as a legitimate workhorse back, he still threw for over 4,000 yards with 26 touchdowns. The Packers handled Seattle at home in the divisional round, winning 28-23, setting up a trip to San Francisco for the NFC Championship game. And this one was almost over before it even started. San Francisco scored in their first drive. Then Rodgers fumbled a deep snap in Packers territory. Then a muffed kickoff pinned Green Bay deep in their own end. Then an interception gave the 49ers yet another short field. By halftime, it was 27-0. Here's something I've genuinely wondered after going through all these losses with you. So many of Rodgers' biggest playoff defeats follow the same exact shape. A slow start, a big early deficit, and then a furious but ultimately futile comeback once it's already too late. Is that a coaching issue? A staff that takes too long to adjust game plans? Or is it something else entirely? I don't have a clear answer for you. It could be the defense that gives us 35 points per game, special teams that looks to mess up at every opportunity possible, the coaching staff that plays too conservative. But it's a pattern that keeps showing up throughout this list, and this game might be the most extreme example of it. Because once Green Bay finally woke up, it was already too late. Raheem Mostert alone rushed for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns in a single game, an insane number for any running back in any context. 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo only attempted 8 passes the entire game, an NFC Championship game record for the fewest attempts ever. Think about that. The 49ers were so dominant on the ground, they barely had to throw the ball at all. Green Bay actually fought back in the second half, with Rodgers throwing 2 touchdowns and Aaron Jones scoring twice, finishing with over 300 passing yards on the day, despite the lopsided score. But a deficit that large against a team that dominant, they were never gonna come back. Final score, 37-20. Rodgers did throw 2 interceptions in this one. The first one was just a bad throw. No excuses there. The second pick was at the end of the game where he was trying to make something special happen, like he did a few years ago. Which I won't blame him too much for, since they're already down 3 possessions in the fourth quarter. even with those 2 mistakes, I still think the story of this game is the run defense that simply couldn't contain Mostert. When the opposing team rushes for over 285 yards and only needs to throw the ball 8 times, the game was decided well before the final whistle. A promising first year under a new coach ended exactly the same way 3 out of the last 5 previous seasons. 1 win away from the Super Bowl, beaten by San Francisco again. I'll be honest with you with this one. This is one of the games on this list that frustrates me the most. And it's not just about one bad decision. This one has layers. The Packers went 13-3 for the 2nd straight year, earning the top seed of the NFC and getting the first round bye. Then demolished the Rams 32-18 in the divisional round to set up a home NFC Championship game against Tom Brady in his very first season with Tampa Bay. This game had everything. Rodgers threw a beautiful 50-yard touchdown pass to Scantling early on to tie it at 7. Then, right before halftime, the Buccaneers found themselves at the Packers' 39-yard line with 8 seconds left, seemingly just trying to improve their field position for an easier field goal attempt. Instead, Brady threw it deep down the sideline, and Scotty Miller ran wide open into the end zone for a touchdown. Buccaneers up 21-10 at the break. Green Bay fumbled to start the second half, and Tampa Bay made it 28-10 almost immediately. And then Rodgers did what Rodgers does. He clawed all the way back, throwing touchdowns, and getting the Packers within striking distance, eventually cutting the lead to 31-23 in the 4th quarter. With just over 2 minutes left, trailing by 8, Rodgers drove the Packers down to the Tampa Bay 8-yard line. 2 incompleted passes later, it was 3rd and goal, and Rodgers escapes the pocket. Now, what do you think Rodgers should do next? A. Throw it to Lazard in double coverage. B. Throw it to Adams in double coverage. Or C. Run it for the end zone, where there's no way he wouldn't actually be able to score.
Moves, throws, pass broken up.
Now, I understand he's old, and I might just be a little delusional, but I really believe that Rodgers would have made it and scored. This reminds me of another moment that happens later in this video. Then it was 4th and goal, and Matt LaFleur sends out the field goal team. I need you to sit with me for a second. Down by 8, with 2 minutes left, with Rodgers standing right there, LaFleur chose to kick the ball that would only cut the deficit to 5, gambling that his defense could get a stop and give Rodgers the ball back one more time. On 3rd and 4, with the season on the line, a Buccaneers receiver got open on a slant, and the defender covering him grabbed his jersey just to keep up. Pass interference. Pretty much game over. Final score, 31-26. Who would have ever thought the Packers defense couldn't get a clutch stop? Now let's talk about who that defender was, because I've been dancing around it this whole section. His name is Kevin King, and by the end of this game, he had personally cost the Packers more than any other single player I've covered in this entire video. That touchdown to Scotty Miller right before half, that was King, completely losing track of his man. There was also a touchdown earlier to Mike Evans in the 1st quarter where King badly mistimed his jump and let it sail right over him. And then the pass interference call to end it. 3 separate game-altering mistakes from the same player in the same game. I was so mad after this loss that my friend actually went out and bought me a Kevin King jersey in a kid size just to rub it in. And I still have it to this day. It's basically a relic at this point. Brady was heading home to his 10th Super Bowl. Rodgers heading home for the 4th time in 7-year span. Rodgers did his job all game long. He threw for over 340 yards and 3 touchdowns and dragged his team back from an 18-point hole. And in the moment that mattered most, his own coach didn't trust him enough to let him try to finish it himself. And the defense behind him couldn't hold up even when given the chance. The 2021 season gave Aaron Rodgers his 4th MVP award. The Packers finished 13-4, their 3rd straight 13-win season, the best record in the NFC, and earned the top seed and a first-round bye for the 2nd year in a row. Their reward was a divisional round matchup at home against the 6th-seeded San Francisco 49ers. By now, you already know how the story goes, but this one might be the most heartbreaking version of it. because for most of the game, it looked like the script was finally about to change. Green Bay scored on their opening drive and led 7-0. The defense kept San Francisco off the board for the entire first half. And then right before halftime, the Packers actually got a gift. Kenny Clark pressured Garoppolo into an interception, and the Packers had the ball at their own 4-yard line with 26 seconds left in the half. Rodgers found a wide open Aaron Jones down the field for a 75-yard completion. Here's the part that still bugs me watching it back. Jones had a ton of room in front of him, and instead of just running straight up the field towards the end zone, he randomly cut back into traffic and basically ran right into a defender before going down to the 14-yard line. Instead, the Packers had to bring out the field goal unit, and then it got blocked. Mason Crosby's 39-yard attempt got batted down to end the half. A play that could have been a touchdown or a worse 3 points turned into literally nothing. And in the fourth quarter, it became 10-3. And the defense was genuinely playing some of the best it has in a long time in the playoffs against that 49ers offense. Then, backed up near their own goal line, the Packers had a punt blocked, and San Francisco returned it for a game-tying touchdown with under 5 minutes left. Looking back at the play, the Packers kinda just got unlucky in my opinion, since no one could actually see the ball, and it landed literally right in front of all the San Fran's players. Rodgers got the ball back with a chance to win it, but he wasn't able to do anything with it. 49ers got the ball back, slowly drove down the field, and got in the field goal range. Robbie Gould drilled a 45-yard field goal as time expired to send the Green Bay Packers home, 13-10. Rodgers didn't throw a single touchdown pass in this game, and he didn't need to. This game was decided by 2 blocked kicks and a missed touchdown opportunity that had nothing to do with him standing in the pocket. The defense probably played one of the best games they could have against the 49ers, since they didn't even score a single offensive touchdown all game. Rodgers made some plays that he needed to make when given the opportunity, and once again, it came down to moments completely outside of his control. This loss made Rodgers the only quarterback in NFL history to lose 4 playoff games to a single opponent, 0-4 against San Francisco across his entire playoff career. And for a kid who grew up in Northern California, idolizing the 49ers, only to be passed over by them in the draft, there's a particular cruel irony to the fact that the one team he could never be in the playoffs was the team he wanted to play for in the first place. Before we can start this chapter, I know that Rodgers played for the Steelers, made the playoffs, and lost. But the game was pretty boring, and in all honesty, Rodgers probably played his worst playoff performance ever. Okay, so let's actually add this up. 11 playoff losses, and across those 11 games, the Packers defense gave up an average of 33 points per game. That's a defense that consistently couldn't get the job done for over a decade. And, well, out of curiosity, I went through some other quarterbacks to see how many points per game their defenses allow during playoff losses. Oh wow, none of them are even really that close to Rodgers, and most of them still having a touchdown cushion. And here's the thing that really gets to me when I think about all this together. When Tom Brady had a rough game, the Patriots defense could hold the opposing team to 3 points. When Peyton Manning struggled, his team would get him 4 turnovers in the Super Bowl. Elite quarterbacks throughout history have had bad nights in the playoffs and survived because the team around them was able to pick up the slack. That almost never happened for Rodgers. The nights he struggled, the defense was giving up 40 points. The nights that he was brilliant, the defense was still giving up 40 points. The margin for error around him was basically 0 for 15 years. He couldn't just have a bad game. He couldn't just have an average game. He had to be great every single time to give his team a chance. Alright, so let's go back through everything we just covered. 2009, 45 points to Kurt Warner and a missed face mask call that would have changed the entire game. 2011, the best statistical season by any quarterback in NFL history, and his own guys dropped 9 passes and fumbled 3 times in a single game. 2012, Kaepernick runs for 181 yards and his defense gives up 570 yards. And that's after Sam Shields literally gave them an early lead with a pick 6. 2013, Micah Hyde drops an interception that's basically a layup for him. 2014, Mike McCarthy kicks 2 field goals on 4th and 1 instead of trusting his MVP quarterback from the 1-yard line. And then Bostic just decided to play hero ball on an onside kick he wasn't even supposed to touch. 2015, Rodgers throws back-to-back miracles just to force overtime. Then we lose a coin flip and watch all our hopes flush away. 2016, the defense gives up 44 points and 493 yards to Atlanta, and Don Capers somehow kept his job after that one. 2019, Mostert runs for 220 yards, and Garoppolo only has to throw the ball 8 times the entire game. 2020, Kevin King personally blows 3 different defensive plays in one game, and LaFleur still trusted that same defense over Rodgers from the 8-yard line. 2021, 2 separate block kicks and Aaron Jones not running straight decided the entire game. That's the list. That's 10 years of this exact thing happening over and over again. And look, I'm not saying Rodgers was perfect in every single one of these games. He wasn't. He overthrew Jennings in 2009. He had a rough first half in Atlanta. He threw a couple picks he wanted back against San Francisco in 2019. I said that throughout this video, and I meant it. I'm not just gonna pretend those things didn't happen. But when I actually sat through and watched all 10 of these games, game by game, the pattern wasn't on him. The pattern was the defense allowing 33 points per game in the playoffs. The pattern was the coaching staff that kept making conservative calls at the exact moment where they needed to be aggressive. The pattern was the special teams disasters that literally had nothing to do with the guy at quarterback. The talent was never, ever the issue. It was everything and everyone around him, over and over again, for 15 years. Thank you guys for watching.